Everyone, my name is Nico.
I'm Tobias.
And Tobias and I are both software engineers at Bloomberg, and we're very excited to talk to you tonight about Bloomberg, the company, and its work in philanthropy, specifically the Python code camp that Tobias and I have started. So, Tobias, can you share your screen? Thanks. All right, so if we go to the next slide, just a quick outline. So to begin, I'll go through an introduction to Bloomberg and the kind of work we do in engineering. Tobias and I will then share a little bit about our personal paths to Bloomberg and what we currently do in our roles. From there, Tobias will take you through an overview of the huge philanthropic arm that we have at Bloomberg and the Python class that we run there. And then we'll finish things out by showing you the coding environment that we use in our classroom and demoing some of the projects that our students have built in the course. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, what is Bloomberg and what do we do? Well, first and foremost, we are a tech company. Our founder, Mike Bloomberg, started the company back in 1981, initially to bring transparency to the bond market. Now, if you don't know what a bond is, you can think of it as a loan or an IOU. And the value of a bond is constantly changing a bit based on a number of different things, such as an interest rate, if you know what that is. Now, this might be hard for you to imagine, but back in 1981, if you wanted the price of something like a bond, you had to physically call someone on the phone and get them to tell you that price verbally. So by the time you actually hung up the phone, the price you got was already outdated. So this is where Bloomberg got its start, bringing real-time bond pricing to those that needed them. And over the years, the company has grown to now 20,000 employees spanning 167 offices. And that mission of transparency is still at its core, expanding now to what is bringing real-time data and powerful analytics to all corners of the financial markets on a global scale. So if you can go to the next slide, you might be wondering, how do we do that? What is the product that we actually sell? Well, it's called the Bloomberg Terminal, and this is what it looks like. You can think of it as a browser that, instead of going to the internet, can run thousands of different web applications, each of which gives you some sort of insight into a particular financial market. So you could see anything from, simple things like the price of an IBM stock or mortgage rates to super complex, computationally intensive analytics. And so as you can imagine, you can see from the picture, there are lots of charts and graphs that the Bloomberg Terminal can provide for you. But that isn't all. Even though we're a tech company, most people actually know us as a news source. In fact, we are actually one of the biggest providers of financial and world news. This might seem surprising for a tech company to do, but if you think about it, current events and news drive finance in a very big way. An earthquake in Japan affects the market. As we saw recently, a political election affects the market. Even a bunch of tweets of people complaining about their phones overheating can affect the market. To that latter one, one of the applications that the Bloomberg Terminal provides actually uses machine learning to do sentiment analysis on tweets to determine if a company is being viewed favorably or negatively, and that actually allows people to make decisions. So the list of functionality that the terminal provides really goes on and on. And if you can go to the next slide, you can see that we have something like 325,000 subscriptions all around the world. And all of our users really depend on us to make decisions daily. So reliability of our product is really just necessary. We can't just go down or be delayed because it would literally impact the financial world. In fact, it was a few years ago now, but the UK had kind of this big financial event planned, and they actually had to cancel it because they were experiencing some connection issues to the Bloomberg Terminal. And so that really goes to show you, the Bloomberg Terminal going down would be a market-moving event. So if you go to the next slide, on the one hand, we have speed required to deliver real-time transparency to the market. And on the other hand, we have the absolute necessity of reliability. And this is all to process over 200 billion pieces of data daily. Fun fact, we actually do this over our own network that we maintain. It's actually one of the largest private networks in the world. I think it's actually second only to our military. And the reason for that is we existed before the internet was a thing. So back in the day, if you wanted to get data to a client, the only way to do it was to physically run a wire out to them. Now, another thing that I want to quickly mention, because we're sometimes described as the first social network of sorts. And the reason for that is one of the biggest uses of the Bloomberg terminal is what's called our Instant Bloomberg, which is a chat messaging feature. And it connects thousands and thousands of financial professionals communicating constantly to make decisions in real time. So you can see here, one of the stats provided is that we process over 1 billion messages every single day. And that's people actually making transactions that are happening right there in the chat in real time. So if we go to the next slide, that's it for, a quick overview of what Bloomberg is. So now, Tobias and I would love to give you a taste of what we do in our roles every day. So just a quick history about us. Tobias and I actually went to grad school together at UMass Amherst, where we got a PhD in math. And during that time, both of us developed a really strong passion for teaching. I personally thought I really wanted to be a math professor. It turns out I really didn't want to be a math professor. And I found myself after the PhD here at Bloomberg as a software engineer. And I started on a team called MARS, which stands for Multi-Asset Risk System. Now, MARS is this super powerful pricing and risk engine. It does something like 1 billion computations every single day. And it can price all sorts of financial instruments, stocks, bonds, like we talked about earlier, and some other, really complex types of things called derivatives. And not only can it price them, but it can also tell you how your finances would fare against different global events, which is really cool. Like if you wanted to know what would happen if another Brexit-like event happened, or if you wanted to know if another housing market crash happened, like we saw in 2008, Mars could tell you. And now what my team does specifically is I lead a team that uses the power of Mars to offer sort of this premium one-stop shop, this portfolio management solution for our clients. So you can think of it as Mars providing the engine and my team building the actual car that we then go and sell to our clients. And I have to say that it's still amazing to me that I get to do this at Bloomberg and also teach this Python course that Tobias will tell you more about. Because, I think we're led to believe growing up that you kind of have to choose to be one thing. And if you take just one thing from this talk today, I hope it's that, this idea really isn't true. This is not something that I knew growing up, but you can be more than one thing professionally. There are places that are interested in your entire self, places like Bloomberg, where there is space to be a software engineer and a Python teacher. So with that, let's hear a little bit more about Tobias.
Cool. So as Nico said, we went to graduate school together. We both got PhDs in theoretical math. And both of us during graduate school, in addition to teaching, started to think maybe we didn't want to be mathematicians forever. And as Nico said, this is something that I'd always imagined I was going to go into academia. I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to do research. But it turns out I changed my mind. And so I decided that what I really was interested in was just solving cool problems, working with people who wanted to solve complex problems together. And that software engineering was a good fit for that. So I followed Nico to Bloomberg, and I've worked on a couple of different teams in my time here. Right now, I work on a team that builds a front-end application infrastructure that traders use to manage the orders that they want to trade. So let's say you need to trade 50 shares of Google and you need to trade 100 shares of Tesla. These traders are maybe working in firms where portfolio managers are telling them how to shift around what they own, and they just need to perform these trades. So my team builds the platform that lets them view all of the trades that they need to make, and then also drive analytics off of that, make decisions, filter them, group them, sort them, whatever they need to do there, and then actually take those actions. So like route them out to the broker to actually make the trade. A lot of my work focuses on performance. We're moving around maybe hundreds of thousands of rows of data at any given time. So we need to move it quickly, but we also need to build generically. So this is something that I've faced a lot recently is when we're building out an infrastructure, we need to be flexible about what we build. So we need to build things that are very specific in terms of providing great functionality, but also can be customized for each team to use their own way. So like Nico, when I came to Bloomberg, I was really excited to get into engineering because it's a lot of fun, but I also missed teaching. And so very luckily, Bloomberg has given us this opportunity to keep on teaching as well. So how do we do that? Well, in addition to Bloomberg's financial data business, right? That's our business, but we also have a major focus on philanthropies. And specifically, we have a goal of using data-driven solutions to impact the world and to affect change. So through Bloomberg Philanthropies, over the course of Michael Bloomberg's career, he's donated over $11 billion to various philanthropic initiatives. They fall into a couple of different categories. So a big one, especially recently, is climate change. Bloomberg has been a big proponent behind the US rejoining the Paris Accord. Gun safety is another big one. Every Town for Gun Safety is a philanthropic mission underneath Bloomberg Philanthropies. But there's also a big focus on education. And so this is where Nico and I really come in. There are a number of educational initiatives. There's ones out of Johns Hopkins, and these are really global. So there's a lot of international education initiatives. But one of them is Bloomberg Startup. So Bloomberg Startup is focused specifically on expanding access to STEM and finance education in underserved communities. They have a really wide variety of programs. So there was a Girls Take Wall Street event that was done with Bloomberg Philanthropies. There's a lot of work through education nonprofits in the US and internationally. And it's got a really broad reach. So in 2020, there were close to 18,000 students participating in startup programs. But in particular, about 20 of those were participating in ours. So the Python Code Camp is something that we started in 2017. Nico and I were both at Bloomberg at that point, and we heard through Philanthropies that they were looking to develop a kind of full-fledged education program that would introduce students to coding. And in particular, we were targeting this at students who didn't have access to computer science education through their high schools. So Nico and I worked together along with a couple of our other colleagues to develop the curriculum and a plan to put this class together. And what we've built is a 12-week course taught entirely in Python that covers all of the basics that we think students need in order to move on in their computer science careers. So we covered data types, Boolean logic, writing loops, functions, all of the stuff you would kind of see in a 101 level class. And the goal is that if students take our class and they enjoy it, when they go to college, they are equipped to go into computer science courses and succeed. So we source our students through nonprofit partners in New York City. We find ones who, this is kind of their only access right now to computer science education. And before coronavirus, we bring them into the Bloomberg offices to teach them. Right now, we're doing it remotely. But either way, we have a really fun time mentoring, working one-on-one, and in particular, working on projects. Okay, so that's us. That's Bloomberg. That's our program. But what we really want to talk to you about today, since you are all, maybe at the start of learning how to code or have done some of it, are the tools that we use in our class, the kinds of projects that we build. And what we'd love to do is kind of leave you at the end with some ideas of things that you could do yourself, especially if you are interested in learning Python or maybe know just a little bit of it. So why Python, first of all? Python is an awesome first programming language to learn. It uses fairly simple, readable syntax. That's not to say that Python, the language, is simple, but it's pretty easy often to read it. and to know what's happening, which is great when you're learning how to code for the first time. It's also super popular. This is not something that people just use to learn how to code. It is used very, very broadly in software engineering, including at Bloomberg. Every team I've worked on has written a lot of our code in Python. It has so many applications as well, outside of just like standard development. It's good for web development, but it's also really good for data science and machine learning. So that's a really common application of it. So if you're interested in something like that, Python is kind of your bread and butter, and getting fluent in it will be super helpful. The other tool we use, which I bet many of you heard of, is Replit. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a website, and I strongly encourage you to check it out. It gives a free in-browser integrated development environment, or IDE. So it gives you a place to write your code, to run your code, to see the output. I think they're actually even moving into offering ways for you to deploy your code so you can host right out of Replit. So it's really cool. It's not just for Python. It supports almost any programming language. So if you want to try a lot of different languages, great place to go for it. It offers tutorials and guides so you can learn right inside of Replit. And the big thing for us is it removes the need for local installation and setup. So if you have ever tried to get your local development environment set up, you might have found that is often one of the hardest parts. Speaking personally, I spent a lot of today trying to get my local environment set up, and it was super frustrating. So Replit is a great way if you want to just try out a language to develop in browser completely without needing to do any of that. The last thing we use is a Python module called Turtle. So Turtle is a really simple seeming graphical interface that you can put on top of Python. It gives you a screen and a cursor. The cursors are called turtles that you can move around with code. So that sounds maybe kind of simple. First and foremost, it's a great way to visualize what you're doing, gain intuition, see what's happening in your code. But we've also found it provides a really great opportunity to build games. So that is what we like to do with our students. We focus a lot on game development. Turtle is a great entry point into that. And what we were going to do now is just give you a kind of taste of what Turtle looks and feels like, and then show you some of the games that we built with our students. All right, so bear with me here while I switch over. Can everyone see that okay? Cool. Okay, so first of all, this is Replit. If you haven't seen it before, we have a coding window over here. There's a console where output will get printed. And then this is where this white thing is my screen. This is where the turtle will appear. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into the code. I'm going to highlight a couple of things. If you've seen Python before, you might find it pretty readable. If not, you might actually still find it pretty readable. But in order to use Turtle, all I have to do here is import Turtle. And now I'm going to move it around. So I'm going to start by setting speed 1. It's going to be super slow, but that's just so we can see it happening. And then you can use commands on a turtle. You can move forward 50 pixels. Here I'm going to turn left 90 degrees. I'm going to go forward a little bit more. And then I'm going to draw a circle of radius 30. So let's just see it happen. Really slow, as promised. Agonizingly slow, but we're moving forward 100 right now. And now we're going to circle. The 30 means that it's radius 30 pixels. Beautiful. Okay, so we created some art. It was fun. What else can we do with this? You haven't seen it before. I'm just commenting out these lines in Python. Next up, let's do something more fun. Okay, so first of all, in Turtle, you can change the shape. There's a couple of different shapes you can use. I'm going to choose the turtle shape because it's obviously the best one. We'll make it purple. I'm going to speed it up so it's less agonizing. And now I'm going to use Turtle and a for loop to make it walk around. And I'm actually going to do a random walk. So let's see. The spinning is kind of like The Exorcist here, I think. But here's my turtle. It's randomly walking around the screen. So I think when you're just starting to think about like loops, for example, having something that's physically moving with each iteration of the loop really helps you see what is happening as the computer executes your code, even if what's happening is sort of creepy. All right, we'll let it play out. What else can we do? One of the things I especially love doing with Turtle is drawing, right? We can create pictures, obviously, by moving this cursor around. And code provides ways to make them, we can use while loops to automate pieces of it. We can repeat pieces. So here's one that we've made with our students. So here we're changing colors, we're using circles. There was a little geometry involved when I wrote this, and we get a flower out of it. Okay, it's fun. I enjoyed it. Here is one more that I really like. This is drawing spirals. This is actually how we present for loops and while loops in our class. So here, what we're going to do is draw a triangle. Oh no.
You have a, yeah.
The risk of a live demo. There we go. What we're doing here is we're drawing triangles, and between every triangle, we're making the side length longer and we're rotating it slightly. And in doing so, we get this spiral forming. And soon, if you look closely, we're going to see we're actually changing the color as well as we get bigger. So we're going from red to purple. This one I think is really fun because as you change the angles, you get all kinds of different spirals out of it. So I hope at this point you feel like, I don't know, maybe it would be fun to create geometric art with Turtle. I certainly enjoy it. But we also said that there was going to be some game development. And one of the things that makes Turtle good for games is that it's pretty easy to set up user interaction. So let's see an example of that. What I have here is a function. So it's a reusable piece of code. I'm calling it handle click. And if you give it an X and Y coordinate, what it's going to do is essentially move the turtle to that location and stamp a picture of the turtle. Okay. What I can do here is I can get the screen. So I'm now talking to the background here and saying anytime the user clicks on the screen, call this handle click function with the X and Y coordinate. So let's do that. All right. Something horrible happened. Let's try that again. All right, I have a bug in my code. Does anybody see it? No? All right, well, we'll be resilient. There is a click handler. There we go. Okay, it just needed to be resized. I think it was having a hard time with X and Y's. So here we go. Everywhere I click, my turtle slides and I stamp a picture of it. And soon I have a whole herd of turtles. So I hope, I mean, these were goofy examples, but I hope you're maybe thinking of ways that you could maybe set something up so that when the user clicks, the turtle moves forward. These are things that you could use if you wanted like a scrolling game like Super Mario, or if you wanted to play tic-tac-toe, for example, this turtle.stamp might be a way that you could mark the board. So what we're going to do now is I will turn it over to Nico, and we're going to demo a couple of the other projects that we use. And so you can sort of see what students build by the end of the course after they have learned some of what's going on with Turtle.
Great. Thanks, Tobias. So we're actually going to show you two examples, and Tobias is still going to run the screen here. So the first that we're going to show you is actually sort of like a simple version of doing the paint application. in Turtle. And this is something that, our students did. And, one thing I want to mention is, first of all, our students come to us with, little or zero coding experience at all. And it's really exciting for us that by the end of the program, they're able to build something like this. And the second thing is that, I think STEM in general kind of gets a bad rap as being like not a creative endeavor. And one of the things that we want to highlight with coding is that it actually is a very creative endeavor. And so we like to keep things super open-ended. So we sort of give them guidelines for kind of building kind of a minimum viable product, and then allow them to kind of add whatever they want, and come up with it, and then we work with them to get it implemented. So what you see here is a simple paint application. So Tobias is going to demo it for it. You can use the arrows to kind of go up, down, left, right, kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch style, which is super fun. But it also supports actually resetting, and you can actually pick up the cursor and drag it around and do some free drawing. And so this is actually using that event handler, click handler that Tobias just went through. Tobias is drawing all sorts of lovely things. One thing that you might want to do is change the color. So these students made it so that you can press different keyboard strokes and change the color. So now we have red. Tobias is now going to draw some nice things in red. I think they supported all sorts of different colors. But the best thing that they did, they came up with it, and we spent a bunch of time developing, is they wanted to be able to kind of do a bunch of colors at once. And so they did what's called super color mode. So if you type S, you can see that now we're sort of getting this rainbow of colors, which was non-trivial to do, but they came up with it, and we worked on it until they could do it. And so you can draw in this fun super color experience. Make some abstract art for us. So that's one of the projects that a couple of our students put together. And we've had other students do different things. There are a lot that you can do with this. You can, draw circles, you can draw rectangles, anything that a typical paint program can do, kind of. But this is where this group got, and we thought the super color mode was very fun. So moving on, we have one more demo for you. This is my personal favorite. It's called the maze game. So Tobias will run it, and what it's doing is it's actually generating a random maze for you. We actually found that there's this like mathematical algorithm that's not that hard to implement, that will just take a size and just randomly generate a maze for you. And you'll see that there are a bunch of snakes. So it's sort of this running theme to kind of use Python wherever we can. And so we have Pythons here that are chasing you. And your goal is to kind of get to this door, which is locked. And so you want to find that key that's there. And there's a sword there to get rid of the snakes, because there are snakes blocking the door. And on top of it, sorry, this is taking quite a while to load. It's a big maze, so it'll be fun to watch Tobias struggle through it. But the snakes are also moving around. So Tobias got lucky here, because right away he picked up the sword, because it's sort of randomly placed. So we won't have to watch him struggle, although we might watch him struggle to figure out the maze. But now that he has the sword, he can actually go right through the snakes. They're gone, and he's now trying to hunt for that key there. Again, this is one of the solutions that came up with. We've had students kind of expand upon this in all sorts of ways, kind of having like splitting into two mazes and having this sort of like teleport feature. Right now, the snakes are kind of dumb. They don't really know that you exist. They kind of move around randomly. But there are lots of things that you can do to kind of make them smarter. Here, we thought of this as a bug, but we kind of liked it, that, when you win, the snakes stay in this weird, creepy, eerie way. But it does tell you that you won. this is always my favorite. The students always come up with really, really fun, interesting ways to make this maze game fun. But like I said, the students are capable of doing all sorts of projects. We've had them do all sorts of things, from tic-tac-toe to Pong, to kind of trying to try to create like almost a Super Mario where they're jumping and obeying gravity, and using Python, particularly Python with Turtle, have allowed us to get them there. So that's everything that we wanted to show you. As Tobias mentioned, we do have some things here for you to try it out yourself. Tobias will open it up. It includes a couple of the demos that we showed, and I think one or two other ones. And it just kind of gives you step-by-step instructions to kind of get you sort of some working product, and then gives you all sorts of opportunities to expand upon it.
Yeah. So just to sort of echo what Nico said, what I hope you take away from speaking to us is a couple of things. One is that Bloomberg is a company that exists and it's a cool place to work, and maybe later on in your careers, you want to look there. We would love to have you. Two is that if you want to learn how to code in Python, Turtle is a really fun way to do it. Or if you're a professional who already codes in Python and you like to draw flowers, Turtle is a really fun way to do it. And to help support you in that, we're actually going to give some of our resources to you in the form of some of these REPLs. So this is publicly available, and we'll make sure that you get sent a link to this. This first one is just a really basic, it's kind of the stuff that I showed you earlier, just what is Turtle. But at the bottom, we have links to a few other projects. And these are projects that are guided, so they have instructions in them. They have a little bit of code to get you started, but they also have suggestions for what to do next. And so if you want to try out Python, if you want to try out Turtle, if you want to try out building Paint, this could be a place that you start. So we're very happy to share those with you, and we hope that if Python is something you're excited about, that they're fun.